Home Secretary, guests and colleagues, a very warm welcome to the 2020 conference of the Police Superintendents Association, a conference which looks and feels incredibly different from anything we have ever hosted in the 100-year history of this prestigious event. In the year that marks a full centenary since the inaugural association conference, there are many things we would have planned to mark this milestone. Hosting the event digitally was not one of them, but although I'm disappointed not to be meeting you in person, I'm proud that we are yet again showing the responsive, innovative and tenacious attitude of our service by redesigning to overcome. It's hard to come up with an adequate phrase to describe the context in which we currently work. The word unprecedented has become almost meaningless, with the frequency with which it's used, and the term challenging times comes nowhere near to encompassing the magnitude of what coronavirus has caused to the public and the police. As a mark of respect, it seems appropriate for us to reflect on the scale of the tragedy and the impact on the lives of so many, including police colleagues who sadly died from COVID-19. I will now pause to hand over to Canon David Wilbraham, the National Police Chaplain, to say a few words.
All of us have a story to tell, the story of our lives. A story that is unique and deserves to be listened to with respect. Sadly, all our human stories end in death, and though sad, that doesn't seem inappropriate at the end of a long and full life. However, in this past year, tragedy is part of those stories, as we have felt the impact of a global pandemic across our own country. Households, families and friends across our country mourn the loss of loved ones who have died far too early as a result of this pandemic. Within the service, 10 colleagues have lost their lives to the virus, and many other homes have been touched by tragedy. We are also mindful of 5 officers who have died whilst on duty over the past 12 months. And so we remember Police Constable Roy Buggins of Police Scotland, Detective Constable Jonathan HICKEN of Dorset Police, Police Constable Nick Dumphreys of Cumbria Constabulary, Police Constable Matthew LANNIE of South Yorkshire Police, and Special Constable RESHAM SINGH NAHAL of West Midlands Police. Good lives, like good stories, live on in our minds and hearts, and especially so as we remember and commemorate those who have died.
What we have faced and continue to face as a nation and a service is tough. But what we have done and all we have achieved is nothing short of incredible. When I began my term as President last year, I set out my plan to focus on the work of our association on the priorities of care for our people, our police and our public. I'm proud to say that we've made real progress on issues impacting on each of these areas, and I'll take this opportunity to look at how COVID has affected them all, how we as an association and a service have and can respond, and where we need the support and care from you, Home Secretary, and our government. As a service, we are adept at contingency planning for a range of scenarios, including pandemics. But coronavirus has posed threats and caused impacts far greater than anything we might have imagined. We know how to deal with criminals intent on causing harm. We know how to respond to floods or chaos on our transport networks. And we know how to support those who are most vulnerable. But how do we respond to a complex, invisible killer virus that no one has encountered before? Our people have, as always, been our most effective resource, our most valued asset, and the reason why we've remained strong as a service. We've had to strip away much of the norm that our people know and depend on. We've removed their workspaces, their face-to-face interactions with our colleagues, and moved them into new roles. For some, community interaction has remained crucial, but it's been carried out in a completely new way. For others, the office is now the living room. Their workplace colleague is a child who desperately wants to talk into the webcam. and the look and feel of public engagement has dramatically changed. So how have our people responded? With dignity, enthusiasm and professionalism. Our members are senior operational leaders tasked with managing the highest level of risk, harm and threat. They have therefore been at the forefront of strategic decision making and workforce command to lead our teams into this unknown crisis. At times, our members described their workload as brutal. At the peak of the virus, officers were being intentionally and daily coughed at or spat at by people choosing to use COVID-19 as a weapon. Every day, police officers are going to work, interacting with colleagues and strangers in the knowledge they could be placing themselves and their families at risk. It's quite incredible that alongside this, we also now see a continuous rise in the number of assaults against our officers as they simply try to do their job. Add to that the constant use of mobile phones to record incidents to which our officers have responded, which can quickly and violently escalate. In these situations, officers use their professionalism, their instinct and their values to protect people. But some members of the public see this as an opportunity to encourage aggression and to capture viral footage. We are accountable for our actions, but every citizen should feel a responsibility to help rather than film. Despite these challenges, the increased violence we are starting to see, and throughout this emergency, we've never sensed that resilience is waning or that our services are starting to suffer. This is the nature of our people. This is why we've repeatedly called for the care and value our service so clearly deserves. Last year, I described the potential for our people to become victims of their own dedication, as I described the relentless workload facing our members and that of many colleagues. I described the mental health impact that this demand is having on those tasked with leading the service, and the continued breaching of working time regulations with little regard for the resulting human impact. Coronavirus did not take this away. We know from our most recent consultation with members through Operation Cadmium, which took place before the national emergency was declared, that the situation has not changed. Once again, on average, our members are working 50% longer than the average working week and are cumulatively working so many extra hours. And when seen as a representative sample of our association, members are carrying out the work of almost 160 additional full-time superintendents. If this was the case before a national emergency ensued, we can only imagine the demands on this small number of senior leaders when the crisis took hold. Home Secretary, last year we asked for a number of national changes to be made to respond to the issues facing our members and to show a commitment to value they clearly deserve. Earlier this year, you made those changes to the regulations to support our members. This included defining the working week of a superintendent so that people who needed to work part-time would not be penalised. This was particularly supported members with caring responsibilities and their families. We thank you for this and appreciate the move towards a culture of value we've been asking for many years. Now we must ask again for recognition of the pressures that continue upon our rank. Last year we presented a case for a defined commitment to an enhanced number of superintendents as part of the National Police Uplift Programme. Recent reports show us that the uplift recruitment figures are healthy, but we're yet to hear of any commitment to our rank, which carries a huge weight of responsibility, whilst also being faced with a large number of recruits to lead and manage, alongside the lasting effects and impact of a global pandemic. I reiterate, before COVID-19, the working hours of a representative sample of our members show we are working all the hours across the country, which add up to 160 additional full-time superintendents. If we truly value our people, can we knowingly ignore this issue? Workforce well-being continues to sit at the core of our association, and as a member of the board of the National Police Wellbeing Service, I'm delighted to see the progress being made here. I do believe, however, that we still have a long way to go in becoming a service that can truly say it values its people in the way it should. We are a public-facing service. We are tasked with protecting people and supporting communities. This will never change. But our duty of care to our people should mirror that of our duty to our public. As an association, we've taken the impetus to provide our members with development support and opportunities to help them with their roles. We work with the College of Policing to create an online toolkit for superintendents as part of their learning platform to provide members with easy access to reference information, policy detail, procedural guidance and leadership support. Going forward, I'm working with the college to ensure that superintendents have access to regular learning opportunities as part of their continued professional development. Whilst we're proud of the influence and achievements we've delivered, I ask that this push for support for our people remains a priority. To get behind those leaders that shoulder the heavy weight on behalf of our service to turn strategy into success. I've spoken here about the need for recognition of the efforts of our rank. We are not an association that views our members in isolation. I often speak of the blue team. We're one police family and we work passionately to develop our service, build it and ultimately protect it from harm. We are deeply concerned about the economic crisis our country now faces. Coronavirus has left its mark on every inch of our country, and the huge financial strain that our nation's leaders must now address should not be underestimated. We understand that it will take a combined effort to resolve this over many years, but our plea, Home Secretary, is for you to protect the policing services this country has depended on. We cannot bear the brunt of the economic downturn by stripping back services that have been nothing other than crucial throughout this national emergency. Funding must be protected to support the promised uplift, and our people must not suffer as a result of a pandemic that they've been called to fight on the front line. We're also acutely aware of the huge financial impact of resolving the public sector pension crisis, and our service must not pick up the bill for this. Cutting our resources to pay for this solution will do nothing other than penalise the very people who were impacted by the inequality from the start. Home Secretary, you speak passionately about your support and respect for officers and staff that work so hard to protect our communities. We ask for your continued care, fighting for our financial protection within the forthcoming spending review. We have seen in the past a smoke and mirrors funding approach where funding was handed out with one hand and reduced with another. In a service still dealing with a decade of financial hardship, the pain is still a vivid memory and the nervousness of how we move forward is still profound. We welcome the current administration's manifesto commitment of funding 20,000 additional officers and ask that you protect us from slipping back into the generation of austerity of the last 10 years. In last year's conference address, when talking about the heroic efforts and incredible sacrifices of our people, I spoke about the tragic death of Thames Valley Police Officer PC Andrew Harper. Now, 1 year after his death, we have seen and read the detail of that horrific night as part of the reporting from the trial. The impact was felt across every corner of our service. Colleagues read with horror the detail of his death and would have felt utter sorrow for his loved ones and colleagues, alongside a poignant consideration of the risks they take for the good of the public. As an association, we support those campaigning for Harper's Law and a mandatory life sentence for the unlawful killing of an emergency service worker whilst they conduct their duties. We will provide our support for any exploration of how a change of this kind could be implemented to ensure justice is served on those found guilty of such abhorrent crimes. Last year, I called for the extension of the Elizabeth Cross to be awarded to families of police officers who are lost in the line of duty. Again, I asked for your support for formal recognition for families from all emergency services who pay the ultimate sacrifice. Home Secretary, as the Police Covenant continues to develop, there are significant opportunities to broaden the support for officers and families. We remain keen to help develop these and to enhance the experience of working as a police officer and the support for families who help us to deliver a quality service. The police service has now entered a new norm, untested and unknown, and it's interesting to note that many people have no desire to return to the old norm. The service has shown that it can and should trust its workforce, empowering them to work independently, remotely, and with extremely positive results. We've cut back on unnecessary in-person meetings with the resulting saving on resources, and we've finally given the green light to a flexible working model that could change the face of our workforce by opening doors to talented, committed individuals who felt limited in their options because of the traditional rigidity of our processes. We must not lose momentum here. We know that we're still losing too many good officers and staff because we don't yet provide the culture of flexibility and inclusion we should strive for. We must maintain this momentum and use this extraordinary situation to harness every element of best practice to build a way forward. This is a new norm, and in many ways it can be an improved norm. We should not lose the chance of far-reaching positivity and progress because of the tragedy that has led us to this place. COVID-19 has caused a paradigm shift in the way we use technology to operate. People who were reluctant to engage with technology as a daily service enabler had no choice but to do so, and we were forced into moving with speed and agility on issues such as IT that we usually only see within the private sector. This has to be the step change we need to move us into, a service that can truly keep pace with the digital evolution that continues around us. We've proven we can and should harness this to our advantage, and we've pushed ourselves forward by years in terms of where we thought we could be in the use of technology to make our service more effective. Coronavirus has placed what is arguably the single most important factor in the effectiveness of policing under the spotlight: our relationship with the public. Throughout the pandemic, we walked a tightrope in balancing our management and control of the virus, government direction, public enforcement and community trust. Never before have the public and the police been so aligned in the timing with which they've received information on police enforcement, and never before have the police and the public had to learn the rules of policing at exactly the same time. Incredibly, and in no doubt due to the professional interactions of our people, in the vast majority of cases, we've been on the same side. Enforcement statistics have shown us that the 4Es policy has worked, and that a very small percentage of the public were subject to enforcement action. This wasn't always smooth going, however. The public were confused and our people were confused. We made mistakes in our interpretations of guidance as it changed regularly, and the public were frustrated about the limitations on their freedom and the conflicting information they were seeing and hearing as they battled to understand their new norm. The government depended on us as a service, and we answered and we delivered. We should be very proud of that we've walked alongside the public for the most part, and that because of our relationship, based on policing with consent, it's lasted the test of time, and we've been in this together. But this relationship is still fragile. This brings me to the final area I wish to discuss, an issue I see as the next national emergency facing our country: diversity and inclusion. Our workforce is not representative of our communities, and our services are not being delivered with legitimacy when it comes to ethnicity. As individuals and members of our service, we stood alongside all those appalled by the shocking death of George Floyd in America. Our outrage was clear and authentic, yet we also stood with an establishment that is still decades behind where it should be in terms of understanding, representing and serving the rich and diverse communities of which it's part. This cannot continue, and we're past the stage of simply talking about this. Indeed, if we don't address the diversity issues within our workforce, as part of the Police Uplift programme, and at such a pivotal time for significant opportunity for change, we will face another 40-year problem as the current recruitment projection of over 50,000 start their careers. We must respond at the pace and scale with which we've reacted to coronavirus. I've written and spoken at length about our association's drive around valuing difference. We've worked hard in recent years, as shown by our work with the College of Policing on coaching and mentoring of underrepresented groups, to make a tangible impact on some of the issues surrounding diversity and inclusion. In addition to the suggestions we've shared directly with you, Home Secretary, we're contributing to a formal plan of action for the service where everyone in policing can and should play their part. As a white male officer, like many of my colleagues, I do not have the lived experience of colleagues from underrepresented groups, so we cannot possibly claim to have the answers. This is, for me, one of the biggest areas where we've got it wrong. We risk making assumptions from a completely misaligned background and experience. We may have every intention of doing the right thing, but we cannot speak for people when we do not fully understand their perspective. We therefore consulted at length with our members from underrepresented groups and have their support in the work we've driven so far. But this isn't reactionary. We've been interlinking with national network leads for years, as we've always recognised the importance of difference. The insight of this is crucial, and we'll be using this with our continued work to support the MPCC and the College of Policing in creating a plan of action to which we must all be held accountable. This plan must have measures, outputs and scrutiny to answer the powerful demand for action. Perhaps, as a colleague suggested to me on a recent call, we also need to add a fifth E to our approach with working with the public, and that is empathy. We need to understand truly the views and perspectives of the people we serve, who feel so misrepresented by their police service. We must not simply listen, we must hear their messages. If a white police officer is approaching a young black person, what is the image of the person that what is the image of the police that the young person has formed? What experiences have they had to date, and what is the context in which they are living? If a young Asian woman sees a police recruitment advertisement, what is her initial response? What is her world? How is it different to the police officers she sees on the screens and on the streets? And how do we make sure these worlds positively connect? I speak to you today as someone who is passionately committed to harnessing the influence of our association to make a difference. It's time to pick up the pace, raise our game and redesign policing to become what we know it should be in terms of its look, its feel and its background. Home Secretary, I know you share our passion in this area, and I would ask that this issue becomes a core part of your National Policing Board agenda and inspection regimes going forward. We must be held to account on this matter in the same way we are with regards to operational policing, and we must work towards a clearer vision of what we wish our service to become. These two emergencies have collided in recent years, catapulting us into dealing with challenges we hadn't expected, but have been ready and able to confront. COVID-19 may be a novel virus, completely new, with so much more for us to learn, but the many issues it's posed for policing are far from unique and deeply ingrained in our structure. They're part of our DNA as we continually respond, build and adapt. It exposed weaknesses and strengths. It shook us to the core and tested our fundamental values in our relationship with the public. It revealed a strong, resilient, passionate service full of incredible people that I've always been very proud to belong to. It has created a new norm, but a norm that contains aspects we should have embraced years ago. Now, once again, we rebuild. With social distancing here for the foreseeable future, with a whole new role for policing to play in ensuring public safety, with a duty of care to our people that has never been clearer, and with an absolute requirement to address diversity, equality and inclusion for our generation and generations to come. We need to seize the moment for everlasting change. Thank you.
Smina, thank you for your warm introduction and warm welcome. And Paul, can I just start by congratulating you on your speech today, and just to say thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to attend and address your conference after what has been an extraordinary year for our nation and for our police, and in fact for all of us. Coronavirus has impacted every aspect of our lives, and it is a testament to Paul's leadership and the hard work of everyone that we are still able to come together today, but obviously virtually, 100 years on from the first Superintendents Conference. Now, we may not all be in the room together, but the one thing we can say is that our policing family remains united, and also stronger than ever before after what I consider to be the most astonishing response to this unprecedented national emergency. So I do want to begin just by thanking all of you for everything that you have done, and also by echoing Paul's tribute to every single officer we have lost this year, through their courage and sacrifice, as Paul has said so far. Their service will never be forgotten. We have all worked tirelessly, selflessly, to protect the public from this deadly virus. And that's on top of a day job, as Paul has said, a day job like no other. Once again, putting our own lives on the front line to serve the very people that you choose to serve. And I know how hard it's been. And in fact, Paul and I, across the entire policing family, have been speaking throughout the coronavirus crisis to look at how police officers have been dealing with the crisis. But thanks to you, an astonishing 91% of the public in England and Wales are happy with the way local police have responded to the outbreak. So today, like Paul, I would like to add my own E to that of the 4 that you have so effectively deployed throughout coronavirus. And that is exceptional, and exceptional for the work that you have done, and exceptional for the way in which you have undertaken your duties. Now, it is said that where there is no law, there is no freedom, and that law and order is the cornerstone of our free society. And without it, we have nothing. But events of the last week have exposed another emerging threat: the so-called eco-crusaders turned criminals, attempting to thwart the media's right to publish without fear nor favour, and a shameful attack on our way of life, our economy, and the livelihoods of the hard-working majority. I refuse point blank to allow that kind of anarchy on our streets. And I'm right behind you as you bring the full might of the law down upon that selfish minority. The very criminals who disrupt our free society must be stopped. And together we must all stand firm against the guerrilla tactics of Extinction Rebellion. And that means adapting to the threat that they pose and ensuring that justice is served. Now, in policing, you have a whole range of powers at your disposal. And of course they should be used, because it is right that the police, for the police, to police against those who threaten our freedoms. And by now, I think you all know that I'm a Home Secretary who is focused on driving change and on getting things done. And so when I spoke to you a year ago, I promised to stand with you and to put the police first, to prioritise your well-being, as Paul has said, your protection, and also the support for your families. And above all else, I vowed to listen. And today, this government of the people's priorities has delivered on that, giving you what you need to do to provide the safer streets and the cuts in crime that the public have asked for. We have already achieved a great deal together. And so today, I would like to celebrate the progress that we have made since last year. I promised to listen, and I have done just that. And over the last year alone, I have made 32 visits to see the police in action, plus 4 virtual visits, including one last week at your own headquarters. I have met remarkable officers up and down the country. a hero stabbed in the line of duty, the courageous cops who tackled the Reading terrorist to the ground before he could claim even more lives, dozens of new recruits who are absolutely excited about joining this incredible profession. And I've galvanised and united senior leaders throughout our National Policing Board. I've worked alongside staff associations, including the Police Superintendents Association, to understand your needs, the needs of the front line. And I've answered the call for Paul to represent your views on that National Policing Board. And thank you, Paul, for all your support and also for the valuable insights of your members throughout the last year. The Police Superintendents Association have been a pivotal partner in delivering positive change for policing. The strength of our relationship demonstrates just how far we have come. We are bound together by mutual trust, and of course that has made us stronger. And throughout all of this, including coronavirus, my door has remained open. Of course, I promised to put more boots on the ground, and I have done exactly that. So far, with more than 4,300 officers have been recruited for that ambitious programme to recruit 20,000 new police officers by March 2023. Now, despite the challenges of coronavirus, we remain on track to meet that target. And of course, with our colleagues, the College of Policing, the Online Assessment Centre, the new platform is being rolled out across forces to keep the momentum going forward. More officers continue to come through that door, and that is another promise for policing that I have kept. I also promised to give you the resources you need, and I have done just that. The government has delivered on the biggest increase in police funding for a decade. And rest assured, I have heard Paul, and I will pull no punches when it comes, yet again, to getting what you need in this spending review. That is a promise that I will keep. And I promised to make the thugs who attack our police think twice. And I have done just that. The recent National Police Chief Council Officer and Staff Safety Review found that almost 9 in 10 officers have been assaulted throughout their career. That is an ugly but an unsurprising fact. Shameful scenes of officers being abused during the recent protests, pelted with missiles, continue to strengthen my resolve to do more in this area. I said that we would consult on doubling the maximum sentence for assaults on emergency workers, and we have. That is a promise that I have kept. And like all of you, I was sickened, and I am still sickened by the harrowing death of PC Andrew Harper, whose life was so cruelly snatched away by a gang of senseless thugs. Their trial was a painful and an ugly reminder of his tragic loss, which has still sent shockwaves throughout the entire service. And last week I met his brave widow, Lissy, who lost her husband in such an unspeakable and brutal way. And of course I met Lizzie to discuss Harper's Law. And later today I will meet Andrew's mother, Debbie Adlam, to hear about her courageous campaign. I share there, and I share your revulsion at anyone who thinks that they can laugh at the law, and the determination to ensure that the punishment for those who kill an officer as they do their duty truly fits the crime. Now, with appeals in this case still ongoing, there are limits to what I can say. But have no doubt, I stand with you against any vile thug who threatens the thin blue line. If they come for our police, I will not hesitate to come for them. And I will do everything in my power to ensure that justice is served. I promise to put your well-being first, and I have done just that. The Frontline Review set out the dire need to do more to support those who sacrifice so much, and of course those who do the very uniquely challenging job that you all do. Once again, this government has acted and listened, with real progress now being made against the recommendations. The National Police Wellbeing Service have published the first National Police Wellbeing Survey to help forces check on progress, and working with the college, we have provided more opportunities for you to have your say when it comes on innovation and improvements in policing. Now, I'm delighted to announce we will go even further as we publish our response to the consultation on the Police Covenant. Our plans received overwhelming support, with 90% backing this pledge to formalise and enhance support and the protection of police officers across society. Now, I can now reveal that the Covenant will apply to all of those involved in police work, extending this to staff, to volunteers, to those that have retired, as well as to our serving officers. It will cover their physical protection as well as their health and well-being. And crucially, it will support families. The very families who too often wave their loved ones off, sometimes worrying if they will ever come home. You and your families want and deserve the recognition for your service and sacrifice. And you have waited too long for this covenant. So to ensure that it makes a real difference and a meaningful difference, I am creating a legal duty for the Home Secretary to report annually to Parliament on the covenant. And of course, the covenant must reflect the heart of policing. So I will ask the sector to drive delivery and consider what more they can do, including creating a new Chief Medical Officer for policing in England and Wales. And I will also consider the findings of the Officer and Staff Safety Review as we develop more meaningful actions. Ensuring that the Police Covenant makes a lasting change to your well-being is another crucial part of a promise that I will keep. I also promised to give you the tools, the equipment and the power you needed to do your job, and I have done just that. Since we changed the rules to make it easier to conduct targeted stop and search, just a year ago, more would-be criminals have been confronted. I have provided funding for up to 8,000 more officers to be trained and equipped to carry a taser. Once more, a promise kept. I also promised to make your work life easier and to give everyone the freedom to succeed, and I'm doing exactly that. I have radically reformed the complaints and disciplinary system to help ease the burden on you all and to ensure that lessons from the past are quickly learned. Now, as Paul has said, I changed the law on the working week for superintendents, helping those with caring responsibilities and, of course, and crucially, opening up the rank to more women. And I have demanded more action on diversity from police leaders from day one, including at this very conference last year. Together we are moving in the right direction, with the highest proportion of BAME and female officers since records began. That's a promise kept, but job is not yet done. My ambition in this area knows no bounds. To build trust and equally to ensure equality across our forces, it is right that we represent the communities that we serve. And we must create a true meritocracy, where everyone has the same opportunities to rise up the rank, irrespective of their background. Impressive work is being done across policing, and I would like to thank Paul and the College of Policing and every superintendent who has taken part in the successful mentoring and coaching schemes. I was heartened last week to visit the Police Superintendents Association headquarters to speak to black and ethnic minority members about the progress that's being made. Now, of course, our discussions were always animated, and there is a recognition that we should and we can do more. And of course, the investment in 20,000 new officers is that once-in-a-lifetime opportunity which cannot be squandered to create the next generation of police leaders who truly represent the society and the country that they serve. I will continue to challenge all police leaders, including chief constables, police and crime commissioners, to accelerate not just their efforts, but to change their approach and attitude in order to drive a much more coordinated action on recruitment, retention, and also on progression. We will use the National Policing Board to drive accountability, assess performance, to ensure that policing creates that meritocracy and a culture where everyone, regardless of their background, has the opportunity to rise up the ranks and progress to the top. Now, I started by saying that this has been an extraordinary year for policing. It has been. There have been tough times, changes and, of course, unprecedented challenges. But there has also been inspirational policing, including incredible bravery and remarkable progress when it comes to policing. The public have noted, and they do now, just how hard you have all worked to keep them safe. And confidence is being restored. I've been true to my word in terms of my promise to deliver for the police, so that you are empowered to deliver for the very people we serve. I will not stop until you are empowered to take down every criminal and to serve every corner of society, and to receive the support and the protection you all so richly deserve. That is another promise that I will be proud to keep. Thank you.